what I would love, oh, recording is happening. What I would love is if people would like to say where they are right now and maybe what brought you to this teach-in today. What drew you to it? So if you just want to, you can put it in the chat box, where you're from, why you came. But if anybody wants to, to shout it out as well. Hi, Lizzie. You're totally welcome to say as well. Be brave.
I'd be brave.
Fantastic. You can always
I,
count on Lizzie to be brave.
I know. I love art and I love activism, so it's just perfect. So,
Wonderful. Thank you. So, and there is a smiley face going up. I think somebody else loves art and activism. Would anybody else like to put it in the chat box, where you are and why you're here? Or feel free to say it out loud. Okay. Somebody from Glasgow, welcome. Ben Rivers drew me after working with him. I'm a longtime performer activist. Fantastic. Calling from, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, Mexico. Always wanted to grow my artivist practice. Wow. Glasgow to Mexico. That's um, covering the globe. Cork City activist. Hi, Margaret. Over half a century. Wow. I like to hear innovative tactics for protests. And you're very, very involved in the Cork Palestine solidarity protests that have been happening. I think we're at week number 125-ish of a protest happening in Cork City every single Saturday. And I wish there wasn't a need for that many protests, but the crew that keeps them going are just phenomenal. I'd say it's the same in Dublin as well. Kim in Waterville. Oh, hi, Kim. Creative change. Loving the new learning. Fantastic. Anybody else want to fire in? Where are you? And what drew you here? Marion Tralee, CNC 3 years ago. Need for artivism more than ever. 100%. Anna, hello from Spain. I'm an active artivist and passionate about the cause of Palestine and actively involved in many projects involving them. Excited to be here. Brilliant. Claire from Cork. Hazel from Leap in Ireland. Leaping Leap. We have Diana based in Cork as well. Fantastic. Elsa in Lisbon. Great. Well, you're all welcome. This is our third Protest Theater Alliance teach-in, and we're calling them teach-ins because we're trying to learn what are some techniques, what are the methodologies, what are people doing to create more awareness about social issues on the street. And one of the reasons that street activism is so important right now is we know people are in their silos. People are not necessarily talking to each other. We're seeing different news. But the street is still a common place. The street can now become a place of discourse where we can reach people from different perspectives. So we can see amazing movements happening around the world with protest, and the impact that it can have. So Hane from Healing on the Move and Ben Rivers from Freedom Theater Palestine, among many other projects, we decided to get together and work on the Protest Theater Alliance with the idea that we could draw on theater activists using protest theater from around the world. So far we've had Hazami from America doing incredible street theater with big images of the Statue of Liberty and building that into arrests that's happening. So these photo ops with the Statue of Liberty getting arrested and the meaning that that creates. And then we had another group last time who were talking about their work, which wasn't just current, but going back to the 70s and tracing the whole arc of protest theater. So today we are absolutely delighted to have Tayo Alkalu. I worked so hard on pronouncing your first name, and I thought I had this second name solid. Tayo Aluko. So sorry about that. All of my practicing of the first name, and not the second. So Tayo is here from Liverpool in the UK, and he has been a theater activist for a long time. He's created four plays, and the plays have all dealt with social justice issues, especially Black history, and how it's everybody's history. So he was already creating plays using theater when everything in Palestine has happened, and so he's been on the street protesting and bringing his art, bringing his musicality, bringing his theater into that space as well. And he's been arrested four times with Palestine Action, and in those arrests has started to sing at the moment of being arrested. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about how bringing just that moment in humanizes the experience and changes the dynamic of what's happening. So today we're going to hear from Tayo. We're going to hear both about his plays that have drawn on historic work, and then we're going to think a little about how could we use history, how could we use this kind of approach in our theater work or our practice if we're going on the street, and what's the impact of bringing in something historic into the present? How does that lens change how we can see or how we can draw people in to the story we're living today? And then we're going to have a little bit of a group discussion. So while he's talking, you might be thinking about how would we apply this? And then we're going to go into Tayo talking about his experience of being arrested. And then again, we'll have breakout rooms there where we'll have the chance to talk about how in those moments can we bring in creativity? Can we bring that artivism into those spaces, and how might it make a change or a difference in what's happening? So I better go to my notes and see, is there anything I forgot to say? Um, I should say that this is what's happening now. It's a partnership with Healing on the Move and Creativity and Change. So I'm with Creativity and Change here in Ireland. And we have Hazel Hurley here, and Hazel is an amazing graphic harvester. And you can see some drawing happening. One of the images is somebody drawing, and she's going to be trying to capture some of the key learning that's happening in our conversation, both with what Tayo is saying, as well as what you're saying and the contributions that you make. And we'll be sharing that image at the very end. And we're hoping to put together a knowledge product. So from all these talks, Hazel is helping to graphic harvest them. We're going to try to capture what's the key learning so that at the end of this period of teach-ins, we'll be able to have a resource for our community, for people to use and to draw from. So last thing, today's webinar is going to be recorded and uploaded onto YouTube channel of the Protest Theatre Alliance. So if you miss anything today or want to share it with somebody else, you can do that. Great. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Tayo now. And could you please give us an overview of your work in theater? Oh, Tayo, yeah, I think you're on mute. You caught that too.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody for being here to listen to me. I will start with the song that started it all off. My Lord, what a morning when the stars begin to fall. That was June 21st, 1995 at the Septon Park Palm House. It was a fundraiser for the Palm House. The event was called the Dawn Chorus. It was about 6 o'clock. So I chose My Lord What a Morning as spiritual. And a lady said to me afterwards, "You remind me of Paul Robeson. Do you sing many of his songs?" And I think my response was, Paul Robeson, I may have heard the name, but I don't know his music. I was 33 years old at the time. I had three architecture degrees, but I hadn't heard of Paul Robeson. Anyway, in the library 2 months later, I don't remember what it was I was looking for, but on the shelf was this book. I recognized the name, borrowed it, read it, and quite honestly, I would say it changed my life. And fast forward 12 years, because I found this story and thought this has to be shared, and I saw it as a stage play, but I had never written a stage play before. I went looking for playwrights, and to cut a long story short, I decided to have a go myself, and it ended up being called Mr. Robeson, with just me on stage and with a pianist, because the songs are as much part of his life and activism as anything else. That was premiered at the Edinburgh Fringe in August 2007, and I started performing it in earnest about 2009, while trying to carry on being an architect and trying to be a property developer. The property development never happened, and the architecture failed in the end, despite the fact that I have several buildings around Liverpool and the northwest of England. But so I gave it up. I gave architecture and property up and decided to be a full-time performer, and toured around the world, actually. And then in 2016 came my second play, which is called Just an Ordinary Lawyer. And I think this particular flyer is from when I performed it in Dublin in 2019. So that play was three years old at this point. It is a play in which my character, who was Britain's first black judge, a part-time judge, looks at black liberation struggles around the world through the eyes of someone who's not really into politics, is just an ordinary lawyer. Following that, during lockdown, I conceived an audio play centered on a particular time in Paul Robeson's life that I couldn't dwell on much or enough in the stage play, and this was recorded with friends in the US and Canada and directed by a Nigerian woman in London, Olushola Oyeleye. And then last year I premiered my final play, which is Coleridge Taylor of Freetown. Premiered it at the Brighton Fringe, set in Freetown, Sierra Leone. So as Christine said, all my work is political, and it goes back to what I learned from Paul Robeson when he said this.
On the other hand, I have never separated my work as an artist from my work as a human being. I've always put it even more strongly, that to me, my art is always a weapon.
So that's an overview.
So, Tayo, thank you for sharing with us a bit of a sense of the work that you've done. Could you tell us how you feel that these historical references that you draw on in your work allow you to address current issues?
Yes, maybe the best way is to let me show you three extracts from three plays, and I can talk about each of them. So I shall share again. Hopefully, okay. Right, from current slide. This is from Coleridge Taylor of Freetown, my most recent play. And it, at this point of the play, my character, George Coleridge Taylor, sort of dissociates himself from the horrors of war that he's witnessing, and he imagines himself in concert singing his uncle's song, his uncle Samuel Coleridge Taylor, in a concert somewhere far, far away from Freetown. So here we go. Oh, not this one.
On the other hand, I have never separated.
All right. So this is a soldier who's got a young woman trapped in a room.
On your knees.
No, please.
Oh, praise me not with your lips, dear one, though your tender words I prize. But dear by far is the soulful gaze of your eyes, your beautiful eyes, your tender loving eyes. Thank you for such a warm welcome to Kingston, Jamaica. I understand that you are honoring the life of Queen Nanny, who led her community of formerly enslaved Africans, the Maroons, in a guerrilla war against the British and survived and triumphed. Now, as many of you know, several Maroons over the centuries went and settled in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and I have been privileged to worship several times in a famous Maroon church, which is still there today.
So that's removing himself from 1990s Freetown, the Civil War, in a room where he's trapped, witnessing a soldier about to assault a woman in that room, and he dissociates himself. But what I do in that section is talk about a 17th century enslaved woman from Jamaica who led this rebellion and triumphed over the British Empire, over the British. So that is a piece of inspiration from centuries ago to remind us that even empires and powers that seem totally invincible can be overcome even by the people who seem to be least powerful. The next one is from Just an Ordinary Lawyer, and my lawyer has just watched on the TV screen in 1968 the Mexico Olympics, and specifically the 200 meters final, which two African Americans were first and third in, and an Australian came second. And this is what he says at this point when he's discussing the Black Power salute that they did.
The white man had tried, it would appear, to wipe out all the peoples he had found in the Americas, North, Central, and South, and in Australia, another country founded on cruelty,
cruelty in the way that thousands had been transported there against their will as convicts from Great Britain, cruelty toward the Aboriginals who had been slaughtered by the tens of thousands, their lands stolen, the survivors enslaved and treated like animals. The Maoris in New Zealand fared marginally better. Yes, Peter Norman clearly knew more about and was troubled by his nation's history than most, for him to take a stand up there with the Americans as he did. It is therefore absolutely appropriate, I humbly submit, for him to be up there and not the Trinidadian, because it showed to the world that this white man recognized a legitimate demand for human rights, and that this white man fully understood that white people have a place in their struggle too. So that's a mixture of the story of the colonization of other parts of the world by by Europeans, basically, going back 17th century, earlier, later, with all the violence that accompanied it. But then we are here in 1968, seeing an incredible piece of protest that the world sees live. These two black men standing with their fists up in the air, and this white man.
Ja,
Karen, I hear you.
Ja.
Ja, ik ben net uitgegaan met
Karen,
en super met een
Karen, I think somebody needs to mute themselves. Trying to figure out who it is.
Yeah. Yes, so in 1968, we see a demonstration of bravery by doing a very public protest by these two African Americans, bravery by the white man joining them in this protest and showing, as I say at the end, that white people have a place in their struggle too. The final one is from the radio play, the audio play that I did over the lockdown. Now, the piece of Paul Robeson's life that I think is so important, it is a piece of American history that is not known well enough at all. To me, it represents the confluence of anti-black racism, anti-communism, anti-Semitism, all surrounding an incident in this one man's life, Paul Robeson. And he had made a speech in Paris in April 1949 when he said he didn't see why African Americans should fight against the Soviet Union when their own country treats them like subhumans. And by the time he got back to America, he had become public enemy number one, and he had been booked to sing in this outdoor concert near Peekskill, Cortlandt Park near Peekskill. And there was a riot. Literally, the veterans, the people there didn't want him to perform. So it was cancelled initially, August 20, I always get this date wrong, 28th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 1949. He had to abandon it, but then the trade unions organized a guard so he could return on September the 4th. And this is what happened the first time.
Major rioting took place in Cortlandt Park outside Peekskill in Westchester County of New York on September 4th after a concert given by Negro singer Paul Robeson. It is believed that the violence had been started by a group of communists loyal to Mr. Robeson and dedicated to the violent overthrow of the government of the United States of America.
Hitler was right.
Hitler was right, they said in 1949, and blaming all the violence on the people who were being attacked. So that, my friends, was what anti-Semitism looked like, anti-communism looked like, anti-black racism looked like in 1949. And I think it's very instructive to see that we were there 70 odd years ago. We went through that. We are in a similar place now, and with the inspiration from knowing that we've been through that, through fighting, through uniting with trade unionists and so on, we can triumph over such adversity.
Thank you so much, Tayo. So we're going to have a bit of time for discussion now, and I want you to think about, what can you take from what Tayo's just shared. So, Tayo shared with us some of the plays that he's created and how he's used those historical contexts to comment on what's happening today. So, he had examples that we could look at from the past where it seemed like unsurmountable odds and people overcame the powers that they were facing. So think about, are there other stories that we could be showing people today that might build that sense of hope or that sense of what are pathways? He's brought in stories about colonization and the roots of that, that then we can show today as a commentary on what's happening now, current day colonization, as well as looking at, these accusations, this last play of against communism and against with that final word of Hitler was right. So showing things like that, bringing in those historical contexts. First, what's the impact of that, do you think? And are there other historical contexts that you think we could draw on today in our protest theater work? What would be something that comes to mind? So you can either pop it in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand and give an example of something that you could think could work, or even if you have a follow-up question that you want to ask Tayo about that, you could also do that. I'll give you a moment to think of your response.
There's two hands.
Thanks, honey. Lizzie, would you like to share?
It's more, well, it's not the exact question but it's more an observation. And I think the coverage definitely of that last one was super powerful in like the propaganda around, like, first of all, Paul Robeson, I love, and then also kind of saying, like, kind of putting everybody who wasn't really in the, I suppose, the norm or the capitalist society, so all communists, all blacks, all everybody, like, the way, and how the propaganda has not changed really. It was more explicit then, but on how, like, the way that's exactly what we hear today, except it's just not so as blunt and it's a little bit more devious, I guess, like, the way. So that was but super. Thank you so much, Tayo, for like such good footage, I suppose, as well. And I think kind of drawing on that footage and almost the ridiculousness of it as well, like, you know, the way that that's what people would think that's ridiculous, the final words, like even about Hitler and stuff. But actually, that's exactly, it's no different from what we're doing today. I don't know, that's just an observation. Thank you so much, though.
Thanks so much, Lizzie. I'm afraid I might not say your name correctly, Dr. Inobong. And could you please tell me the correct way to say your name?
Oh my gosh, that was really well pronounced. Hi, I'm Dr. Liz as well. So you had Lizzie and now Liz.
Oh,
But
brilliant.
Tayo knows me. Inobong is Nigerian, an Igbo name for God's first gift. And anyway, but Tayo knows me because we're activists in the reparations movement together. So thank you for sharing, Tayo. We're both in Global African Congress. So I kept missing he's so cosmopolitan. He's performed in Liverpool and Ireland, and it sounds like we've got a good crowd of my Irish brothers and sisters on the call today. So yes, just 2018 was one of my most active years of being an activist. And you look back at 2018, think, oh, there's nothing much going on, Liz. Why are we so active? Because we were under Theresa May. We had all the revelations of the hostile environment and the revelation of the Home Office scandal. And we felt like we were always out demonstrating. But we also had the beginnings of the attacks on the NHS. And the reason why I'm sort of bringing that up, because 2018, some sisters on the left and myself, we organised an event called Sisters in the Struggle, which sort of inspired me today to come on, because it was like using art as a form of rebellion. So we had sisters who spent their whole lives in the struggle in the way that they used art and their forms of art. For example, one of our sisters, may she rest in peace now, who used to make banners for the Notting Hill Carnival. And then when I got into political activity, she was making banners for Jeremy Corbyn and for unions and the NHS and all the different Black Lives Matter demonstrations. But she passed recently. But yeah, so we had the Sisters in the Struggle, where all the different artists had, musical arts as well as the visual art, and making posters, making banners. The sisters who'd worked in the women's liberation movement, and the leaflets and banners that they built in their squats and the rest of it. But I'm coming around to the point of my question was, I just this week said to my son, I worked as a youth worker as well. He's a youth worker now. And I said, oh, when I worked as a youth worker, they sent me out to Watford, which is outside of London. And I didn't realise that all the skinheads and the white nationalists had been sent out to the outskirts of London when the African Caribbean communities were moving into London. So one of the young people, imagine 14-year-olds, turned to you saying Hitler was right. And that's exactly the words that they use. So I found it really poignant that in the Paul Robeson, these people were just said that they'd just finished fighting the fascists and fighting the Nazis, and were coming back from war, and they were calling him. They were attacking Paul Robeson and the left and the communists and the Russians, who'd actually defeated the fascists. They had the most impactful impact on the allies, against the Nazis. And they've come back from there, come back to America, come back to segregation and Jim Crow, and they're saying that Hitler was right. Well, I think they're the least patriotic in this situation than Paul Robeson and the communists that were trying to sing. And what could the singing be done?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tayo, for solidarity.
Sorry to cut you off there. Did you finish everything you wanted to say?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Inobong. I see Danny Leo has their hand up, and then Melissa, and then we'll maybe move on from there. But if you have other comments, you can put them in the chat box. Did I say your name right, Danny Leo?
Donnie Lyle.
Danny Lyle. Yes, what would you like to say?
I was going to add a suggestion to the other context we could explore.
Hmm.
I'm a college student studying theater from the same state in the US that Paul Robeson is from, and we're from the same area actually in New Jersey. And so that being said, the move bombing in Philadelphia was an instance where there was this move organization, a Black liberation group similar to the Black Panthers, but they focused on like animal rights as well. And they got into kind of like a situation with the police over noise and trash, and their facility was bombed by the uh, police,
Mm.
and it goes to show the amount of force that the government could put upon us. And I think it would be interesting to be explored in theater. Um, but yeah,
Thank you, Danny Leo. That's horrible to hear that that's happened, but I can see the potential to use theater to highlight the injustice of that experience. Melissa,
Thank you so much. Thank you for this special session. And I grew up, my dad was a communist, and so I grew up with this music and listening to it. It doesn't mean that my brothers were affected by it, but I was. And what I wanted to share now was a poem by Naomi Shihab, who is a Palestinian American poet. And she references, it's about Paul Robeson when he wasn't allowed into Canada and he sang at the border. Uh, I imagine, Tayo, that you're familiar with this story because you are a super expert on Paul Robeson. But most people don't know this, that he sang into Canada. And I put the poem in the chat so people
mm,
can have it. It's quite beautiful. It's short and quite beautiful. And for me, it shows how this history teaches us what we can do. And and the connection with Palestine for me is so strong. Um, one, because it's a Palestinian poet that's writing this, but she gathered strength from Paul's action. And I
mm.
think we can gather strength from both Paul and from Naomi as they're gathering. So I'm always excited to hear more about Paul and your play. Thank you.
Oh, wow, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing that. I hadn't heard of this poem, but I feel like we could hold that line in our head. What countries may we sing into? How may our art cross boundaries? Thank you so much for that. I have maybe one very quick last example of here in Ireland. I don't know if Helen or Claire, who are in this call, would like to say anything about the mural. If you turn on your camera, I'll let you talk, but if you don't, I'll just share about it. They were involved in creating a mural. There was an anti-racism protest in Cork, which is appalling. Anti-racism has been growing in Ireland. And as a protest, Helen and Claire, along with Kim, who's in this call, and some other people, created a mural that drew on historical roots in Ireland. I've got an image here I'll share with you, which was one of the founders in after the 1960s 16 uprising. And so the far right in Ireland really look up to the history within Ireland. And so this man, James Connolly, he fought for Irish independence. And he's quoted as saying, "Let no Irishman throw a stone at the foreigner. He may hit his own clan." And so on the day of this anti-racism protest, this mural was created right where the protest was happening as a historical reference to what did Ireland originally stand on, and how can we draw on that history to show where Ireland could go. So I think finding these historical references are potentially ways, as Tayo has shown us so eloquently, ways to bring a new awareness of what's happening today, new pathways we can try, historical resonances. So I think a lot of us are here today because we care deeply about what's happening in Palestine, the genocide in Palestine, and Tayo, his activism has led him right out onto the street. And I'm wondering if you could tell us now about your involvement with Palestine Action in the UK, what it's been like to be arrested, and how you've brought in creativity to those moments. And Tayo has just disappeared.
I am here. I'm just plugging my laptop in because I just noticed that it wasn't plugged in.
Okay.
So, bear with me.
While we're bearing with you, I'm going to read a couple of the other comments because there's some amazing things in the chat box. There's Melissa, beautiful examples of actions, performances, dinners, rituals at both sides of the US-Mexico border. Karen saw the mural. Melissa, apartheid wall on the Palestinian side, full of references. I'd really like to see that. I'll maybe hand it over to you, Tayo.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about
that. Worth reading as well.
Yes. Okay, I shall share again, if I may.
Yeah.
Right. So, up in, I think, 2021, in Liverpool, there was a proposed electronics arms fair to be held in the arena, which is a council-owned building, and people objected to that, and there was a big march, and the Fire Brigades Union lent a fire truck, from the top of which people made speeches, including Jeremy Corbyn, who you see behind me there, and I sang. I don't remember what exactly I sang, but down below us in the big crowd was a guy called Chris Williamson, who was previously in the Labour Party but was expelled through trumped-up anti-Semitism charges. And he invited me to he had formed a new party which has since been subsumed into the Workers' Party, and he invited me to a conference and asked if I could go and sing at that one. And at that conference, there was this presentation given by two people, and they were the founders of Palestine Action. And what they said made absolute sense. You can write, you can march, you can do this, you can do that, you can boycott, but you need to get to the people who are manufacturing arms and make sure people see you doing it. So this is the kind of thing they did. And that's an arms factory. I think that's UAV Tactical Systems. These are arms manufacturers. Elbit Systems own them right in Great Britain, so they attack those buildings. And so I said, count me in. I'll join you. So in March 2021, I did my first action. I think it was the same factory in Leicester. And that's me on top of a minibus that I had driven into the gates to lock it and prevent people working that day. And I sang from the top of the minibus, the van, and we were arrested maybe about 1 o'clock. The next one was in August in Tamworth. Good packing company. They packaged arms to send to the IDF. So they were attacked by Palestine Action, and you see the difference between how Palestine Action described what happened there. That they were attacked for packaging arms to Gaza. The press, the local press, had this: Palestine Action activists vandalized Tamworth warehouse to protest Israel's state terror, in inverted commas. Bearing in mind this is 2021, long before the current genocide started. And there you see me and my colleague. We are now known as the Bad Packing Four. So they are filming me because, again, I'm singing. I think I'm singing John Lennon's Imagine at that point. So Palestine Action did actions like this all over the country, and it was because they were so effective and because juries of our peers refused on many occasions to convict us, as in this example, not guilty, because we were saying our defenses were preventing harm elsewhere. And because of that, because of the close relationship between the British government and the Israeli government, Palestine Action was finally proscribed, which led to people saying, we don't agree with this and we will protest. And this is the kind of protest that has been happening. And people have been arrested. And if we consider this to be theatre, I did a newsletter very recently as a result of my arrest last week, Tuesday. And I think I called it British Nigerian is among the actors who's upstaged by a mannequin in a UK government devised pantomime. And this happened. This mannequin was arrested along with us. So, I mean, it's making the government, in my opinion, quite a laughing stock. But you saw the numbers of people at Trafalgar Square, that was in the summer. And these things are still going on, by the way. So if you look, Lift the Ban, Defend Our Juries, you'll see, if you're in the UK, where and how you can take part. And if you do, well, I got arrested on Tuesday, and this is what I did, and that's since gone viral, which actually is good, because we've got to be able to show the world the absurdity of the law, which we expect and hope will be repealed.
Deep in your heart, would you be willing to know it's true. We are not the terrorists.
Is the reason why you're not going to get up and walk
We are not the terrorists.
I don't want to be using force. I want to be
only cardboard signs.
Is there anything I can read with you all say to
Stop
get us
the genocide in Palestine.
You're a hero, sir.
Sir, you're a hero.
There we go. So that's my relationship with Palestine Action so far. I expect and hope that another organization will rise once the ban is lifted.
Thank you, Tayo. I'm wondering if anybody would like to make a comment or ask a question about what you've just seen. I am trying to see if anyone hands are raised. Melissa, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I just think it's brilliant. Were you the only one singing, Phil?
I was the only one singing that song. There were others singing around a colleague of theirs. I think she was a member of a choir and they were singing. But I had sung We Shall Overcome in Liverpool when I was arrested some weeks before. And I thought up the new words to that. And yeah, so it would be nice to think that other people would learn the song and sing it too.
It would be wonderful if you shared the lyrics.
I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tayo. So there's lots of comments in the chat box. Lizzie, it's bringing tears to my eyes. I saw it. It was so powerful and makes them just seem stupid. Yeah. Daniela, you were there. I think that's what it means. Hane, very touching. Thank you so much. Bravo. Mr. Robson would be proud. Yes. It's inspiring. So many people are afraid. Yeah, that feels like the singing itself can transform the fear that the guards, that the police are trying to impose on people. It changes the atmosphere and comforts us in our fear and emboldens us. How do you decide what music you'll do for a protest? Do you ever bring more musicians and accompaniment?
No, I put words to the Irish song actually, the Londonderry, I don't know whether to Oh Danny Boy. Oh Palestine, for justice you've been calling, since when land thieves came from across the sea, etc., etc. And I think it would be a good song to use in a flash mob. And I think I've worked out some parts to it. I tend, which is not necessarily a good thing, to be a soloist, but I'd love people to join me, or I join in with other people whenever they ask me. Yeah.
Another person similar. It was so powerful, and the singing was so dignified and showed how ridiculous the police are. Yes. Do you think artists need to be more powerful activists today than rather observers of the truth?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I think having somebody like Paul Robeson as a mentor, as an inspiration, he, in his time, was one of the most famous, most successful financially, successful people, and he did what he did, came up against the US government knowing that his career was at risk, and he went from earning $100,000 a year in the 1930s to $6,000 a year in the 1950s. So and then you've got people like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Patrice Lumumba, people who literally died. So I feel that I have inherited a tradition which basically requires bravery. It requires bravery. So whatever it takes, I'm not brave enough to say I'm going to put myself in a position where I know I will get killed. I don't think so. But I think artists generally and ordinary people, if we need to be brave enough to even going on a protest knowing you're going to be arrested, that requires some bravery, and a lot of people do it. A lot more could and should, in my opinion.
Thank you, Tayo. Diana says there's something so powerful about the use of the singing voice, especially in relation to voicing and singing our hopes into action. Well put. Each shall overcome is a beautiful historical, but not that action we need. This version is powerful. Yes. My friend got arrested at the mass arrest in London, in which 900 were arrested and took 5 hours to get processed. They released her onto the streets at 2 a.m. alone. No money, no phone. Oh my gosh, she had a heart attack. Wow. That is harrowing. Putting her life on the line. Mary, really interesting comment. Singing can bring calm to a situation. You're a musician. Change the mood, allow the message to get through when chanting may be ignored.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please do, Tayo.
When I was waiting to be put into the van, one of the policemen said, I've got to say, your voice is very calming. Very nice voice. It's very calming. Thank you. And that's going to be an earworm. I'm not going to be able to get rid of that tune. So, I think it reminds us that, these are human beings too. They are doing a job. What would I do in that situation if that was the only job I could find? It's an interesting question. Which reminds me, I've always thought that mannequin, as theatre makers, can you imagine, I'm not going to do it, but maybe one of you will do it. Can you imagine a play made out of, it might be two people, or one person and a mannequin, or two people and a mannequin, a police person, in the drive from the protest site to the police station, the conversation that could happen between the police person and, because somebody had to escort that mannequin to the police station, so that could be made into a piece of theatre, in my opinion.
Really good idea, Tayo. On that note of a good idea, we're going to go into breakout rooms and spend a little bit of time with people, maybe brainstorming. What's coming to your mind now of ideas? What could we do? So I've just written down a few roles or a few things that happen when we bring music and singing into protest spaces. It can create calm. It can require bravery. It can show the ridiculousness of those in power. It can help us to sing hope into action, and it can humanize. So these are all powerful, different states of being that our art, our creativity can bring into these protest spaces. Now we're going to put you in breakout rooms so that you have a chance to maybe pick up on one of those themes. Why would you intentionally try to create calming or bravery or hope or humanizing? What songs might you use? What might that look like? And I know some people probably, have your cameras off. Maybe you're working and you have your earphones on and you can't really participate. That's fine. What we'll do is Hani will put us into breakout rooms. Maybe we'll put lots of people in a breakout room, like 7 or 8 people. So if there's some people that can't participate, hopefully there's enough there that can turn their cameras on and have a little chat. If you end up with a room and nobody's turning their their videos on and nobody is talking to you, just leave the room, come back, and we'll reallocate you to a room, hopefully where there's a bit more action happening. So we'll take 10 minutes for a little chat because we want this space to be one where, we're encouraging each other, sparking new ideas. That we can take into the places where we live. So, Hani, does that work for you to put us into breakout rooms? Thanks.
Yes, for 10 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
See you afterwards. You all have been invited. Hi, Anna.
Hi, sorry, I got kicked out and then I had to go back. It's okay. I can stay here with you. I don't want to interrupt the
It's
breakout
fine.
room or anything.
No worries. They are already done in 30 seconds, so
Okay, this is an amazing event. I'm feeling super inspired again. It's good. We
amazing.
need
Yeah.
community, right? That's,
Yeah.
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 So thank you for this space. I'm very
And thank you
thankful
for
and grateful.
coming.
Thank you.
We can only survive in community. It's nice to see your process, Hazel.
Come again?
I'm talking to Hazel. It's nice to
Ah,
see
okay.
the process.
Thanks, honey.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, like
you
live,
can see
right?
how it
Art
evolved.
being created as, yeah, it's incredible.
That image of the policemen around him was just really cool.
Wow.
I said I'd recreate that.
The mannequin
And
hair was
I
also
drew a
some.
mannequin as well getting arrested.
Nice.
Yeah, this is a fun one. They're all fun ones.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you
Uh,
had a fruitful conversation.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Hane. Um, I'd love to hear any insights or thoughts that you came up with in your group. Would anybody like to share? You can raise your hand. What stood out to you about your group's conversation? Danny.
Our group definitely got to the point at the end where we were talking about music in protest being a great context. Like, as we saw earlier, it could be a calmer, but it can also be a unifier. Like, we were talking about remixing songs. And yeah, that's what I took away.
Thank you. Liz.
Is that Liz or Lizzie?
Liz, you.
Hello.
You
Our group
changed your
was all,
name.
yeah, changed my name again. I'm joking. Yeah, our group was all women, all sisters, and it was sad at the end to find that, you know, the 40 odd years of protest, no, 50, 60 odd years of protest seems like we've gone round in a circle. And it got me upset at the end, actually. That's why I put my hand up, because, there's things that we would have thought that we got over, and now misogyny and racism have got more, as much, so not more, as much power in terms of cheek. People feel like they've got the right to say what they want and do what they want against you. And now they've got the veil of social media to do it. They can invisibly, they don't come up to you and lynch you. They'll make you lose your job. They'll make you lose your mental well-being. And they'll, get you arrested as well, because there's a lot of mistrust and people who are not to be trusted in some of our movements as well. So we have to be aware all the time. And like, sorry, it wasn't Diane, it's the lady on the left at the side there. Seeing your lovely face. One of the sisters said that in the 80s we thought we'd turned the corner, but in the 2000s, she said, so I hope not misquoting you, that in the 2000s she could see the rise of fascism again. And, because I said something about continuing to struggle, be in the struggle, so that my children don't have to be in the struggle. But yeah, music, and whenever we go on demos, we take drums with us. And that is also because, just to let you know, the drums actually bring out endorphins. So maybe song does as well. It brings out endorphins that can be healing.
That's really interesting to think about the innate qualities of the medium that we're using. So we've talked a lot about music today, and Mary brought up how it's calming. Now Liz has brought up the endorphins. Somebody in my group brought up the idea that drums he said it's like the walls of Jericho coming down. It's that sense of power, that sense of change. So each artistic medium, theater, dance, music, is going to have innate qualities, and we can think about the qualities. We can think about the change we're trying to see in which artistic medium would be the best suited for it. So certainly there's a lot going for music. Would somebody else like to say something that stood out to them from their discussion in their group? We'll maybe have 4 more minutes, and then we'll close with 10 minutes of questions for Tayo. So any other thing that stood out in your group?
Yeah. Hi.
Thanks, Daniela. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
everyone. Connecting from France, I'm Brazilian with a mix of heritages. Colonizer, colonized. So glad to be here. And one thing that stood out to me is that I really need to read Pleasure Activism, because Diana inspired me. I heard about this book before, and she was talking about it in the group, and how we need to bring more pleasure as well to this activism we do. She will know much more to talk about because she's reading it. But thank you so much for this session that I really appreciate. We need more of that. And Tayo, wow, my role model.
Thanks. Thanks so much. I think that's another, if we're making this list, and maybe Hazel will graphic artist it for us as well, just the power of bringing in art. I think what you just said is the artivism, the pleasure artivism. And that also bringing in music. Oh, well done, Hazel. She's already done it. Bringing in music can also, for us as activists, can resource us and can give us joy and can fuel us. And that's so important as well. So a long list for us to capture there. Any other comments about something you took from your group?
Can I just say something?
Yes,
Pamela.
I'm sorry, I can't see who that is, but yes, please.
Yeah, that is Pamela. You can just see my name on screen.
Oh, hi, Pamela. Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so Liz and I have been on the same march, which we do the 1st of August every year. It's to mark emancipation. And she mentioned the drumming, which is, what we always have every year. But for the first time this year, we actually spontaneously started to sing. And that, for me, was actually the best thing, because it brought a whole different dimension, a whole different feeling to the protest. So yeah, I just want to, I'd forgotten about that. So I want to say about the power of singing, as Brother Taylor's been saying. Yeah, so adding to our protest, it was a really good thing. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, looks like I raised my hand. Tayo, so I'm going to hand it back to you. I'm going to, if anybody has any other questions for Tayo or any other comments for Tayo, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat box. But just as people are gathering their questions, I'm wondering, Tayo, from just what people have taken from their conversations and the power of music on the street, or theater on the street, is there something you would like to say to that? Something you've observed in your work?
Well, one thing I would like to say is to respond to Liz's comment about the group saying that 40 years of activism and we're back to square one. That is the nature of humanity, and we will always have struggles. Our children will not escape the need to protest, to struggle, and that is why, in my opinion, artists, as much as historians, can give us the tools to combat depression, and that tool is inspiration from stories from the past, which is what I try to do. So do not be depressed. Sing, read and translate something into a piece of art, something inspiring from the past. I will give you an example. Since you talk about, you being women, and so in Coleridge Taylor of Freetown, my most recent play, there is one section where I have a voiceover, and I'm just saying how my wife Gloria told me about the Sierra Leone women's movement, and how a whole community of market women went on a protest because the Lebanese traders were fixing the prices in the markets, and they went on a protest and they won in the 1940s. So there are always stories from the past to inspire us, especially when we're feeling depressed and wondering if we're going backwards. We go backwards from time to time, but art can push us forwards.
Oh, I feel very encouraged. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for that wisdom. What other questions do you have? We have only 8 minutes left with Tayo, so speak now or you will have to leave holding that question.
Some questions are on the chat.
Oh, thanks, honey. Sorry, I was missing them because I was in the wrong view. Okay, David's question, Tayo. This is a tough one. How do we get the far right to come to our theater work?
Good question. I think maybe we take our theater work to them, and if if they end up being arrested for something, then part of their punishment is the wrong word, but part of the deal is for them to go to attend something like ours. Yeah, so it's a good question, to which I don't have the answer. Interestingly, I had somebody far right in my call, Mr. Robeson, a few months ago, and he asked a question at the end of this play about this socialist, and he was asking questions about whether I'm not worried about immigration and Islam and and crime. And the audience, thankfully, answered for me. They shouted him down. But at least he was there, and hopefully he took something away from it.
Thank you, Tayo. Honey, would it be possible to share Hazel's screen now? Because we have 6 minutes, and maybe while we have our last questions with Tayo, we can see the artwork and the collection of thoughts. So, Hane, The meeting is scheduled is about to end. Action items for this meeting. Share the lyrics of the song "We Shall Overcome" with the group. Yes. Oh, I don't know if that was for me to read. Yes, we will share the lyrics of the songs. Tayo, if you can send us the lyrics, we can make sure that everybody that's in the call can access those. Philomena has a question for those in professions where activism is discouraged or risky. What are safe and responsible ways to advocate for social justice without jeopardizing their roles or facing disciplinary action? Hey.
Interestingly, a friend of mine is a young teacher in a primary school, and he talked very recently about changing the mind of a fellow teacher just by having a conversation, one-on-one. Just without being confrontational, just sort of describing, making comparisons, or saying what Europe has done to Africa is like. For instance, if your class came to my class and took everything else and left us with nothing, what are we to do? And if we go back into your class to try to get something else, shouldn't we be able to do that? That sort of thing. And he said that she was moved by that and seemed to come round. So just one-on-one conversations and your example, and have a here's this book, have a read. Perhaps.
Thanks, Tayo. I think I see one more question, just scrolling to make sure I'm not missing anything. Mary says, have you ever tried a combination of singing for a while and then absolute silence using mime to depict whatever it is you're trying to draw attention to?
No, but I might try that.
Mary, would you like to elaborate on that? Have you tried this? Will you try this?
No, I've never tried it, but I think, somebody, somebody mentioned silence, or I can't remember actually a few minutes ago, and I just kind of sparked the thought, but I just thought because, the singing was so calming, and then, maybe in that calm space, then I've seen on the street in Germany, actually, people dressed up just all in black and with white masks. And the worst thing is I can't even remember what they were protesting against now, but in the moment it was just very, very arresting, busy street, mime, and it did kind of stop you in your tracks, just like a flash mob would. But a flash mob, obviously you're doing something, it can be quite noisy, and it can be entertaining. But I just found that the opposite actually really worked as well. And if it were maybe combined then with the singing, where you've kind of just completely melted the hearts of the people who have to arrest you or feel they have to arrest you. And then I don't know if it would have to be kind of coordinated, I suppose, with other people in your group, that they then, kind of, I don't know, pick up on either what you're protesting about, and have a little mini play in mime for two minutes maybe. And yeah, it's just another idea.
Great. Well, I have to say, in response to that, one of the most powerful protests I was ever part of in Cork City, we did a silent protest. And normally it would be very loud, we'd be chanting, but we did it in silence. And often I've noticed in the protests that the bystanders, the people you're walking past, kind of pull away, and they sometimes look a bit afraid. But when we were in silence, and I think there were 400 or 500 people that day, people were standing and looking, and they were drawn in, and they were completely engaged with what was happening. And I think there was something about the silence that was more powerful because it created curiosity and because it's so unusual to see this huge group of people in silence. There was something about it that felt sacred. So I think, yeah, bringing in silence could be really interesting. We're at 5:30, so I'm going to let Tayo have a final word. Is there anything you would like to say before we say goodbye to each other?
No, thank you very much for joining me and for inviting me to speak about what I do. It's made me think, remember, and so on. And I feel that I feel encouraged, actually, looking back at what I've done, because that I must be doing something right if I get asked to have an audience of people worldwide to listen and to have such a warm reception. So I'm very grateful, and I will continue to do what I do, and I hope that you will also do the same, because boy, do we need it, and art is the best weapon.
Art is the best weapon. Yeah, fantastic. And I'm so glad that you're leaving encouraged, because I'm feeling extremely encouraged, and I can imagine other people are as well. And this is what we need, spaces where we can, remind ourselves of our power, our collective power, and the power of art. So thank you so much, Tayo, for coming. And thank you everybody else for coming. I know it's not easy to carve out the time, and some people were juggling probably work and this, but it means so much that you would give up your time to come and be present today. So thank you, and hopefully we'll see you at a future one as well. We're not going to be doing one in December, but in January, we're going to hopefully have Bread and Puppet Theater working with us and doing a teach-in with us. So we'll keep you posted about that. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Hane, for doing all the tech. And thank you, Hazel, for your absolutely amazing graphic harvesting. I don't even know how you do it. It's so wonderful to have that record of our conversation to remind us.
Thanks, Tayo and Hazel.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you in January.
See you in January. Good night. Goodbye. Good afternoon.
Bye.
Good morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so